Sigmund Freud was an Austrian neurologist who was born in 1856 and died in, I'm assuming, a regular human lifespan after that particular day. He studied a lot of human psychology, and he had a massive psychoanalytic theory which basically stated that the human psyche isn't just a single component and is actually a bit more complex in how our behaviour is used, I guess. In his theory, he states that there are three elements that all work together to create the complex human behaviour, and these three elements consist of the id, the ego, and the superego. You might have heard of this before, you might not have, but it's okay because I'm going to talk about a little bit on these three elements. So the reason I'm talking about this is because I had a crazy meditation. I haven't spoken about this in a while, but this was a couple of months ago that I experienced this, and I recently researched about Sigmund Freud, and I suddenly thought, shit, that's like exactly what happened to me in a way. So the id, which is one of the three components in his theory, is the natural impulses. And the natural impulses, so this is talking about, it's a theory which says there are three parts of your mind that work together to make a behaviour that you do. So the natural impulses is the part of you which is like desire, and it's based on the a pleasure principle. So anytime you feel any hunger or sexual desire or just indulgement for a certain activity like drinking or I don't know, whatever you indulge in, that is fueled by this id, or I forgot what it's called, the natural impulse area of this psyche. So that's like the devil on your shoulder, if you like. Then you have the superego, which is driven by moral principles. So it's basically saying what society would tell you is right to do, and this is the angel on your shoulder, if you like, and it's the one that would say, oh no, but if I did this then that would be wrong. Or for example, so let's say the id is oh, I really want to eat my sandwich in the middle of this meeting. But then the superego would be oh, but eating in front of people in this important meeting would be rude and disrespectful. And this is where the ego comes in. And the ego is driven by reality principle, and it's the middle ground, and it compromises between the id and the superego, and that is the three principles, or the three elements that create this human psyche in Sigmund Freud's experiment or theory. So a while back I was meditating, and I can't remember what exactly I was meditating on. I don't know how I got to this area, but I was in a really, really deep meditation, and I suddenly it felt like I entered a dark room, and I could feel myself, and I could sense the presence of two other beings, but still me, but there were two other beings around, and there was a third being. I wasn't entirely sure what it was. I could sense it near me though, but I was in this dark room, and if you're in a room that's kind of echoey, and you talk out, and you can hear the ambience of the room, and it felt like that. But obviously I was within my own psyche, which was insane, during a meditation. And I don't know how I got to this part, but it just suddenly snapped, and I was in this place in my mind, obviously. So I could sense two beings, and I could feel myself. I was me. And then the beings started talking, and the guy over here, to my left, was kind of a dickhead, but he was me, which is really weird. He was really egotistic, and he was just saying negative things to me, or just to the room. And he was saying stuff like, oh, you're stupid, why are you doing this, what's wrong with you? And he was oh, no one can hurt me, I'm this and that, I'm so cool. And he was really up his own arse, and he was just a not a nice person. But it was a really overly exaggerated bad version of me, if that makes sense. And then the being to my right was the polar opposite, and it was such a gentle, it was still me, but it had a very feminine presence to it, and obviously the other side was more masculine, but this feminine presence was so, like, it was like speaking the truth, and it was so like honest and just like, wow, you know, it really was just the truth, and it was so kind and respectful and compassionate to everything. And then they were, I don't know, the thoughts were kind of coming and going. I wasn't controlling the thoughts, I was letting the thoughts go between. And then there was me, the observer, or the ego. So now, obviously the ego is who you think you are, and in this area, I was me, or who I think I am, my ego. And I could see the interaction between us three beings in my own psyche. And I suddenly realised, holy shit, I am the observer of my own thoughts, the ego. And this kind of ties into Sigmund Freud's theory about the id, the superego, and the ego. So obviously the guy on my left, who was like the really impulsive dickhead that I didn't really fancy being around, he would have fit and aligned to the natural impulse, or the id. The superego would have been the voice of reason, that I was the really nice being to my right. And then the ego, the one that compromises, was me, and I was observing these two beings. Now, further to being in this meditation, I suddenly realised that you can observe your thoughts and you don't have to act on your thoughts. So being the observer of your thoughts allows you to be in so much more control of yourself and who you are. Because if you just sit there and let your thoughts pass, even if it's not a particularly nice thought, let it pass. Like, don't like reject the thought. Don't reject the thoughts. Let it pass and observe the thoughts, and you will start to realise how powerful the mind actually is, and how much you can observe your thoughts. So instead of acting like, if you react angrily to something, don't feed that thought, that instant natural impulse to be angry. Don't like feed it straight away. Like, just observe it and let it be. And if you feel the need to be angry, then by all means, like, feel the anger, but just don't act out. Don't be angry like that. Don't do something stupid, basically. But obviously you have the right to be angry. You can feel your emotion, but observe that emotion and don't feed into it. And you can choose whether you want to feel, or if you want to act on a certain thought that comes into your mind. You can choose. I mean, it's so clear. I mean, if you so say you're thinking, oh, I really just want to pig out and just eat everything in the fridge. Or I could go for a run on my treadmill, but then maybe pig out a little bit, but with a salad, I guess. I don't know. That choosing between, you literally choose whether you want to do that or not. You can feel your impulse to pig out because you want to pig out and just sit on the sofa and mong out and watch TV. Or you could be active and, you know, go for a run on a treadmill and then pig out a little bit. But even after the run, you probably don't want to pig out afterwards. And everyone has this choosing between what to do scenario in every single aspect of their life. You choose to do something. You choose whether you want to get the bus to the next town, or if you want to walk to the next town, depending on how far away the next town is. You choose to do everything. You are the observer of the thoughts that come to your mind. So I want you to take from this video just a bit of clarity on your own psyche and how you can now improve yourself by choosing better thoughts in the long run to make yourself the best person you can be. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.